हेलो लिसनर्स, हमारे साथ आज जुड़े हैं अलंकृता श्रीवास्तवा जी, जो कि एक जाने माने बॉलीवुड के डायरेक्टर हैं, जिन्होंने काफ़ी सही और अच्छे प्रोजेक्ट्स में काम किया, जैसे कि शी हैज़ बीन अ पार्ट ऑफ मेड इन हेवन. शी इज़ ऑल्सो द डायरेक्टर ऑफ द फेमस मूवी लिपस्टिक अंडर माई बुरका, विच टॉक्ड अबाउट फीमेल सेक्सुअलिटी and the minority community and how women there navigate the spaces. अलंकृता जी, मैं आपका स्वागत करना चाहूँगा यहाँ. अलंकृता जी, सबसे पहला सवाल मेरा जो होगा ये विमेन एंड सेक्सुअलिटी के ऊपर ही होगा कि एज अ विमेन डायरेक्टर योर सेल्फ, what made you choose the topic of female sexuality in your movies, which is generally seen as a taboo subject in when we talk about Bollywood or India as a conservative nation के बारे में जब बात करते हैं, तो what made you decide to go and talk about female sexuality?
आई थिंक फॉर मी मैं जैसे मेरे लिए जो किरदार होते हैं, कैरेक्टर्स जो होते हैं, वहाँ ही से कहानी इमर्ज होती है. तो मैं आई डोंट, इट्स नॉट लाइक आई मेक अ प्लान कि आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट दिस इशू, आई एम गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट फीमेल सेक्सुअलिटी. आई थिंक फॉर मी क्या होता है, वो किरदार मेरे माइंड में इमर्ज होते हैं एंड एज द कैरेक्टर्स इमर्ज आई फील इट बिकम्स वेरी क्लियर कि उनकी क्या मतलब वो किस दुनिया में रहते हैं, उनके ज़िंदगी में क्या चल रहा है. और मुझे लगता है कि जब भी आप बारीकी से किस फीमेल कैरेक्टर्स को देखेंगे तो वो सारी इश्यूज़, वो उन जो लेयर्स होते हैं कि व्हाट इज़ रियली गोइंग ऑन इन देयर लाइफ, उनके ड्रीम्स क्या हैं, उनके एम्बिशंस क्या हैं, व्हाट इज़ ब्रेकिंग देयर हार्ट, what is making them jump with joy, what is it that they want, so I think all of that becomes clear. So I think with all of my work, whether it was my first film Turning 30 or it's Lipstick on My Burkha or Dolly Kitty or Woh Chamakte Sitare, Bombay Begums, all of that, I think मेरी कोशिश यही रही है to look closely at the character, and then whatever that person would be going through, if I imagine somebody like that in real life, I feel वहाँ से वो शुरू हो जाता है कि what is actually going on in that person's life.
आपने जैसे अभी एक मूवी के बारे में बात की, डॉली किटी और उनके चमकते सितारे, विच वॉज बेस्ड ऑन टू सिस्टर्स हु आर इन ग्रेटर नोएडा. तो टॉकिंग अबाउट द प्रोसेस ऑफ taking over such characters and talking about that characters, what is the process? Because if we take example of Dolly and Kitty, or if we take example of Lipstick Under My Burqa, तो यहाँ पर we see a trend where you are following the lives of common women from a lower middle class household. So what is the process?
I mean प्रोसेस इन द सेंस कि वो मतलब मेरे माइंड में वो आ जाते हैं किरदार की, वो and I think the characters always emerge in a context कि वो सोशो इकोनॉमिक स्ट्राटा क्या होगा. तो मुझे ये मिडिल क्लास औरतों की कहानियाँ बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग लगती हैं, क्योंकि मुझे क्या लगता है कि जो चॉइसेस हैं लाइफ में वो हम बिना कॉन्टेक्स्ट के नहीं लेते. सो आई माइट मेक अ सर्टन चॉइस बिकॉज आई हैव अ सर्टन प्रिविलेज, एंड आई माइट मेक अ डिफरेंट चॉइस अगर आई डोंट हैव दैट काइंड ऑफ फाइनेंशियल प्रिविलेज और दैट क्लास प्रिविलेज और दैट कास्ट प्रिविलेज एक्सेट्रा. तो जैसे डॉली किट्टी में जो भूमि पेडनेकर का कैरेक्टर है किट्टी, वो बहुत सारी चॉइसेस ऐसी लेती है दैट आई फील शी मेक्स दोज चॉइसेस बिकॉज शी इज़ ऑक्यूपाइंग अ सर्टन टाइम इन हर लाइफ एंड अ सर्टन स्पेस. वो यहाँ की है भी नहीं, उसका अपना घर भी नहीं है यहाँ पे, फाइनेंशियली शी इज़ नॉट sorted. So she will make certain choices which may to somebody else it might seem like why is she making this choice. So I think मुझे बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग ये लगता है कि अगर हम किसी कैरेक्टर को ले तो वो जो चॉइस बनाएंगे वो अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट के हिसाब से चॉइस बनाएंगे. सो फॉर इंस्टेंस इवन लाइक इन अ शो लाइक बॉम्बे बेगम्स वेयर इट इज़ like a more high end corporate kind of a world, there also जो कैरेक्टर्स हैं वो अपने सिचुएशन के हिसाब से चॉइसेस बनाएंगे. सो समटाइम्स यू कैन जज देम और आई डोंट जज माई कैरेक्टर्स, पर मुझे वही लगता है कि वो बहुत सारी चीज़ें होती हैं, हम क्या चूज़ करते हैं और हमें क्या लगता है कि ये सही है या गलत. तो मुझे ये एग्जैक्ट बॉक्स में डालना अच्छा नहीं लगता दैट यू पुट अ कैरेक्टर एंड से शी इज़ गुड एंड और द अदर वन इज़ बैड. आई थिंक we all very grey people, and I think for me that is most exciting about filmmaking, to explore characters who are वो in between ही है, वो ना सही है ना गलत है, वो human है, you know, and complicated and complex, and in some situations they're very kind, in some situations they might be very cruel.
Talking about the characters, now if we talk about the current socio-political climate, we often see कि एक टाइप के किरदार को बहुत ज़्यादा विद अगेन दी एडवेंट ऑफ सोशल मीडिया बहुत ज़्यादा ट्रोल किया जाता है या बहुत ज़्यादा सवाल उठाया जाता है. फॉर एग्जांपल डॉली और किट्टी की अगर बात करें तो कॉन्करर सेन शर्मा का जो कैरेक्टर था विच डिड एंगेज इन एक्स्ट्रा मैरिटल अफेयर, तो उसको लेके भी बहुत सारे सवाल उठाए गए थे कि बॉलीवुड इज़ ग्लोरीफाइंग दीज काइंड ऑफ रिलेशंस. बट नाउ करेंटली व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट a very mainstream movie, for example Animal, for that matter, where again the same topic is explored of extramarital affairs, तो वहाँ पर इस मतलब जस्ट बिकॉज वो प्राइमरी कैरेक्टर एक मेल कैरेक्टर है तो इस पे सवाल नहीं उठाया जाता, ये इस पर्टिकुलर चीज़ को लेकर ट्रोलिंग नहीं किए जाती. बट डॉली एंड किट्टी के टाइम पे ऐसी ट्रोलिंग आई थी. तो व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि ये जो पेट्रियार्कल नोशन है तो इसके अगेंस्ट जब आप कोई कैरेक्टर बनाते हो तब डू you think about the audience, how they are going to look at it, or do you just want to put out stories, or even if you're thinking about the audience, do you know change certain personality or qualities of your characters depending on the audience?
Actually, my process is such कि I think of only one audience person and that's me. तो मुझे वो कहानी इंटरेस्टिंग लगनी चाहिए, मुझे वो किरदार ऐसा लगना चाहिए that I should be invested in that character. And we of course live in a world you know, which is definitely like the status of women is something that we have to keep working on to, you know, have more equal space, equal opportunity. And I feel that it's important to tell you know, stories of ordinary women who do go through this process where they feel they don't have enough sort of space. So and like I said, I don't judge my characters. I feel like you know, I like characters who are little rebellious, जो थोड़ा सा उनमें थोड़ा spunk होना चाहिए. I like characters who are having fun, not just being subjugated, you know. तो वो oppression, जो भी oppression है, repression है, वो subvert कैसे कर रहे हैं वो ladies, वो तो I think I find that interesting. Like what is their little, that small little act of say rebellion, or that small little act of trying to find एक छोटा सा you know, little bit of space, that little breathing space. So that can come in any way. It can come in fighting back your boss. It can come in feeling if you're unfulfilled in your marriage, to seek that fulfillment somewhere else. It can come in having the courage to say no to a marriage that you don't agree with. So it depends, you know. Or it can just come like, I don't want to cook this thing in the kitchen. The character can say it in any way. But I think I find it interesting jab there is a certain sense of a rebellion in the characters. Not that they're just taking it, but they're also fighting back in their own way, in their own small way. कुछ तो कर रहे हैं अपनी मतलब छोटे से सपने, छोटे से desires को fulfill करने के लिए. तो some steps they should be taking. I feel that's very important, because that's how I feel women have survived all these generations. There has been so you know, like so much subjugation of women, but I feel that's how we've survived, by fighting back in small ways. Those small victories are so important, those small dreams, those small acts of rebellion. तो मुझे लगता है कि there's that for me is you know, is how change actually happens. So, and also I feel like you know, it can't be that somebody is going through something and they keep sitting and crying. That's not how people function, you know. You find some way of, you find some outlet, you find some way of making your life more bearable, and you know, so I guess so I kind of like exploring that.
जैसे कि आपने बोला कि देर आर ऑलवेज स्मॉल रेबेलियंस. हम अगर लिपस्टिक अंडर में बुरखा की बात करें, वेयरिंग अ लिपस्टिक और रीडिंग सेक्शुअल बुक बाय अ वुमन हु इज़ इन अ लेट 60s, these might be small things for someone, but these small things can lead to such a big rebellion and society को ऐसा बदल सकते हैं. वो आपके movies ने according to me and I am very sure according to audience बहुत अच्छे से निभाया है. टॉकिंग अबाउट डिफरेंट कैरेक्टर्स, मैम बहुत एक डायरेक्ट सवाल है. इन फ्यूचर विल वी गेट टू सी समवन फ्रॉम someone whose surname is from the lower caste and someone who's very showing off the fact that they are from the Dalit or Adivasi community? Will we get to see that from any of your characters in the future?
I do feel that stories with Dalit protagonists are best told by Dalit filmmakers, because I think they know those stories better. In terms of, I think if the whole story is about that protagonist, I would prefer to hand the mic over to somebody who has a lived experience, who will probably be able to say like Neeraj Ghewan, somebody like him would probably be better equipped to tell that story. But of course, I feel in terms of representation, we need characters from and stories of people from every sort of from every community, every bracket, and I do feel that diversity is very, very important. And I think we do all, I think everybody, as a community of filmmakers, we all need to do more to provide more space, even whether it's queer stories. It's I think the more diverse the people are behind the camera, utni zyada diversity screen pe dikhegi. And I think that's what I would like to sort of say.
मैम आपने मेंशन किया डाइवर्सिटी बिहाइंड कैमरा एंड क्वेयर पीपल इन द क्रू, तो इसी के ऊपर मैं और कन्वर्सेशन को थोड़ा सा आगे ले जाना चाहूँगा. मैम मुझको बहुत डायरेक्टली और एक सवाल पूछना है कि do you look for diversity when you're hiring your crew or when your production team is hiring the crew? Is there some sort of diversity that you look for ki a certain percentage of people behind the camera, be it director of photography, cinematographers, they have to be women or queer people? Do you look at this sort of diversity?
I think I have been looking at diversity very much in terms of making sure there are a lot of women on the crew. So, for instance, when I was doing Bombay Begums, all the writers in the writers' room were women. I made sure that the other director was female. So I think it's very important that whenever one is in a is in a position to decide, I think to make those active decisions. So definitely, and I do think it should become more formalized. Abhi to, matlab, we all do it, but in a more informal way. And I think maybe it needs structure. That to have a proper plan of how that diversity can really become something which is not left to chance and the discretion of one person, but it becomes more like the nature of things. But definitely one sort of tries to have a diverse crew. But I do feel we need to have a more systematic way of doing things, because there are many departments. In fact, we have spoken about it. We had done one round table also and discussed it. Certain departments don't have any women actually. So to really get more women on into those departments, because I think entry level pe sabse zyada farak padta hai. So I think we need to have more and more and just work also with our heads of different departments to help them get more women onto their teams, because we often end up hiring only the head of department and they hire then their own team. So to start those kind of conversations where we can really empower more more people, more diverse people than just men being on set. I remember my first film where I worked as an assistant, there were 250 men and 3 women. So, that was a kind of situation that was.
Ma'am, I totally agree with you that at an entry level there should be more representation. But that also becomes difficult in a nation like ours because representation also comes from privilege here. For example, if I talk about my university, I've done masters from Jamia Millia Islamia, and the mass communication department there is amazing, which does an amazing job of putting talented people out there. But in order to go to Mumbai and again to sort of be in that struggle and किसी एक production team के साथ जुड़ना, that also needs to उसके लिए भी एक kind of privilege की backing चाहिए. तो are you as a director or for your production team, do you are you guiding these sort of newcomers, or is there any process of guiding these sort of newcomers in the industry right now?
I think there are some initiatives are there which I do support, like labs are there, like screenwriting labs, where we do mentorship programs. So you help people with whatever they're writing, kind of nurture them. On an informal level, of course, people who reach out, one sort of talks to them. But I do think that the organized things really help. So, and I know that the Screenwriter Association does a lot of stuff in terms of writing. And I think I agree with you. In terms of aiding and all that, I don't think that much happens in like an organized manner. वो ज़्यादा वो होता है कि whoever comes to Bombay, they make calls. That's how we did it as well. You make calls, somebody calls somebody, and then you. So it is a very, again, like I'm saying, very dependent on chance. But I think going to Jamia, I'm also from Jamia, and going to Jamia itself is it's a really good entry point. There are a lot of people in Jamia who are actually working, in the field, and so I think that is helpful in itself. That does provide some sort of a network in itself. So yeah, I do think we should have more organized ways, but I guess I don't know. Our industry itself is quite disorganized. So, but yeah, I think it's something to think about as to what can one do even to encourage like assistant directors and all of that. Yeah, I don't know what the other associations do, like the Art Directors Association and the Costume Association. I know that the Cinematographers Association is doing a lot to encourage. There's a Women Cinematographers Association now, and they are doing a lot to support women who are trying to enter cinematography. So I think they've done a very, very organized thing. It's female focused, but it's very organized. They, you can become if you want to be a cinematographer and you got training, you can become a member, and they advise you and they help you get jobs, and which is actually really good because there are very few female cinematographers in Bombay. So yeah, so I think there are some things like I feel like the Screenwriters Association, the Cinematographers Association, but yeah, I guess in some like in the more generic things like ADing and production, it's more like you move from job to job and you have to figure it out on your own, and of course it's very hard the first few years.
Also, talking about Bollywood as an industry, when we talk about the society also at large, it's very, it's very difficult to, dissociate Bollywood from the society because we live in a country where literally Amitabh Bachchan and Rajnikant are worshipped and there are temples. So, Bollywood as an industry or the film industry does hold a power over the society, but even after that there are few projects coming which are not very helpful to the marginalized communities, so as to say. So would you say कि production houses and all का कोई hegemony है industry में कि ऐसे projects फिर भी आ रहे उभर के, या पहले hegemony था अभी वो काफ़ी हद तक कम हुआ है?
I think your question is a very complex question. But the first thing, I guess the main thing is that the film industry is a very amorphous place. Bollywood is a term which I actually don't particularly like the term, but basically refers to the Hindi film industry, which is just one of the industries. And I guess the main thing is it's a business. So, like, it's like whatever sells is what gets promoted. And I think cinema and society have a very interesting relationship. I do feel cinema is a reflection of society. So certain kinds of films are made because society is going in that direction, etc. So when when Salim Javed created The Angry Young Man in the 1970s, there was a lot of frustration in terms of people who didn't have jobs and all of that, which is why, I mean, like, that character of the angry young man that Amitabh Bachchan used to play in so many films resonated so much. So I do feel that the very very popular films often resonate. The ones that do very well and people, there is something obviously about those films which resonate deeply with society. That is why. So that is one part of it, and the second is, of course, it's an industry. So the amount of money that's going into creating those films, and it's those stars and the whole machinery that is there to, which has shaped audience tastes as well. Which is why I feel ki it's not in air that an audience is going to watch a certain kind of film. For decades, they've been trained, brainwashed into a certain kind of, to choose a certain kind of cinema. So that unlearning is not going to happen unless that kind of machinery is there to make them aware of a totally different kind of cinema. So I do feel there are a lot of factors at play, but one of, I mean, I do think that nothing is random. When somebody makes a film, they know what they're making. When people go watch a film and they resonate with it, there is something that they are resonating with, whatever it is. Like, it could be a misogynist character, it could be a patriotic character. Even when they resonate with my film, they're resonating with something. There is some truth which makes people feel seen. So I guess that's really what cinema is. That like, and India's a very vast country, and and there are all kinds of people. Also, people are different at different points in time. So I think there are a lot of things. It's not such a simple sort of a thing. And the other thing is, the main thing is that it's also a business, right? So I think. Eventually, I think it's very important to examine that what is said ki ye business ki wajah, like, that what are the films that do a lot of business, and that also hasn't emerged from nowhere. It was a systemic thing of promoting a certain kind of cinema, and keeps changing every decade. But then those films end up doing like the maximum business. For instance, there was a whole NRI kind of thing when India's economy was opening up and people could. So there is a sense of, there is something, that there is a reflection between what does a lot of business and what's going on in society. That's what I feel. But honestly, I think more the better answers will come from people who are really studying this and examining it properly, and they have all the facts and figures and are doing research. But this is as a as a lay person and just somebody who's a filmmaker, this is what, and not a mainstream filmmaker, this is what I feel.
मैम वी हैव कन्वर्स्ड फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम. मैं बस एक छोटा सा सवाल से मैं हमारा डिस्कशन करना चाहूँगा. मैं ये पूछना चाहूँगा, एज एन ऑडियंस एट टाइम्स वी फील लाइक वी हैव नो पावर over media. There are many sections of the community who are brutalized, who are trolled, who go through violence. इतने सारे movies आ रहे हैं जो उसी violence को glorify किए जा रहे हैं. तो as an audience member हमको कभी कभी लगता है कि we don't have any power. Is it true, or is there something we can do from our side to make sure the right stories come out and the stories which actually represent us come out?
I think as an audience, the main thing that one can do is support the cinema that does come out, which you resonate with. And it's different for different people, but support the films that mean something to you, whether they're independent films, they are shows, promote them, talk about them. Because those people who are making those films also need that support. So I would say that, if there's an independent film that comes out which you feel a sense of resonance with, then promote it, talk about it, figure out how you can get more people to sort of watch it. So I think it's also like help build an audience for the culture that speaks to you, and write about it, tweet about it, whatever your way, or just talk about it to your friends, family. So I feel the mainstream also changes by changes that happen in the independent sphere, and the more, so when there a lot of stuff is happening in the independent space, it starts impacting the mainstream. So I think there are always very beautiful films that are also made. There are some fantastic shows, but you know how many people are watching those? How many people are talking about them? So I think it's also about what we as an audience promote, what we support, what we watch, what we talk about. Because audience support goes a very long way in enabling more of that. So I would say that find the stuff that speaks to you and and sort of promote that. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for conversing with us. If allowed, मैं बस एक ही छोटा सा चीज़ बोलना चाहूँगा एंड में. When you're working on the next season of Bait It Heaven, please try कि नॉर्थ ईस्ट से कल्चर की रिप्रेजेंटेशन और नॉर्थ ईस्टर्न शादी का भी रिप्रेजेंटेशन हो, बिकॉज आई एम अ क्वेयर जर्नलिस्ट फ्रॉम नॉर्थ ईस्ट. And to be very honest, the culture there is so colorful, and I'm pretty sure you will find so many amazing stories out there. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking your time.
Keep that in mind if we do season 3. Thank you so much for that suggestion. It's very, very beautiful. And yes, we shall keep that in mind. But whether or not there's a season 3 is a question that only Amazon can answer. So thank you.
We hope it comes out because it is one of the few series which are actually representing many communities out there. Thank you so much.